Yo, welcome! We got a show, guys. We got a show. Welcome to the Everynerd show, where I nerd out about everything with everyone, and including different versions of myself. All right. Once upon a time, I told you guys I was going to get the book. This first book, Legitimate Kid. And when people do that, which there's nothing wrong with that, we very rarely hear back from people after they've read said book and did they like it. For those of you who do not know, my name is Josh Evans. I am the host of the show. We will be having lots of discussions and nerding out for years and years to come. Topic of the day today is AI. Obviously, there are strikes happening right now in the video game industry. And my take on AI is stop. It's just stop. AI is going to exist. It's going to be a part of our lives. That's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about is not putting the money attached to AI over the lives of real people. Now I understand that I'm dealing with people who don't care about people, but that's what it is. Imagine there's a failing grocery store and they're like, you know what's really gonna kill them? Synthetic apples. And they're like, what? What do you mean synthetic apples? And the boss of this failing company goes, you know those plastic apples we have in the window to get people to walk in and buy the real thing? I'm like, yeah. He's like, so we are just gonna slowly start replacing all of our fake apples with the plastic ones. Huh? Won't people know that's plastic? No, because if we have the original apples that we got from the farmers, we'll just study their essence and coat our plastic apples with the essence, but it'll have none of the soul or the heart in it. And I think we can get away with it because people are stupid. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell you plastic apples, and the farmers, the voice actors are like, yo, stop it. You can't turn your business around by doing things that are fake. You do right by people, put in the protections, and that's it. Honestly, I don't know why none of these video game studios have just been like, okay, we'll treat people like people. Do you know the amount of money the first company to do that could make? They're like, okay, sure, we'll give them the protections and what they need in order to feel safe and to work and to protect their livelihood and their family because we want to make games. They'd be the only game in town, literally. So that's my take on AI. Just do right by people. Do right by people. Video game actors want to work. They're like anyone else in their profession. They want to work. So do right by people. Now, we're going to cut away to my good friend, Mr. Josh. He is the myth maker in residence. See, a lot of people want to get into storytelling and they don't know how. Not everyone's read the books. Not everyone knows what books to read. Not everyone has the time to find out what books to read and then to read them. So we've got a man on the inside who has read the books, who has created stories, who understands what it means to be a writer, a storyteller, a creator, and he's analyzed everything you need to know about storytelling. So we're gonna have a regular unit with him as our in-house myth maker. Please enjoy this segment of Myth Mechanics. The first thing you need to know about the hero's journey is that it has nothing to do with being heroic. Every character in your story is on their own hero's journey. What? The hero's journey is not about being heroic or becoming a hero. The hero's journey is about a character who begins at a place of incompletion and ends at a place of fulfillment, wholeness, realization. And so sometimes that's evil. Sometimes the realization of who they are is evil. Sometimes it's heroic, sometimes it's anti-hero, just to use some of the bigger known character types. Sometimes they remain basic. Think about the cabbage person, the cabbage man, in Avatar. Basic, very, very simple, but he also was on a hero's journey. He just didn't change at the end of his. Turns out at the end of his hero's journey, he wanted to remain exactly who and where he was. Think about someone like Zuko, or we can stay on Avatar for a minute. Avatar, The Last Airbender, the cartoon, is actually a phenomenal example of every character being on a hero's journey. So let's look at Zuko, right? Zuko starts as this angry teen, knotted up, emotionally abused, ostracized from his community, and he's just focused relentlessly on, I gotta get the avatar. And he goes through his hero's journey. And no one who has watched Avatar The Last Airbender would say that Zuko necessarily became a hero. He became more noble, but he did not necessarily become a hero. Azula starts as someone who is all about the Fire Nation, right? And then she goes through her hero's journey arc and she ends up a mad woman. It's a journey that happens, right? Sokka has a hero's journey, Katara has a hero's journey, Firelord Ozai has a hero's journey. The hero's journey is not about you have a base character who's not a hero and they become a hero. It has nothing to do with being heroic. It's about someone who is unrealized, going through this process that Joseph Campbell has outlined, and then becoming realized. Whoa! Did I tell you? I told you guys he was the real deal. So keep all of that in mind. Now, we're having a real blast. This next segment is actually very near and dear to my heart. I mean, all of them are, but this one especially because it's literally where this entire show came from. I don't know if you know, but earlier this year, I launched my own con here in the city of Pasadena, California, in conjunction with Octavia's Bookshelf. And I'm excited to do another one. We're planning another one, and calls are being made. I want to show you a tiny snippet from that con. I will probably sprinkle snippets throughout the various episodes to come in the future. But I just want to show you in action what this whole concept means. Because the whole point of Everynerd is that everyone is a nerd about... Actually, you know what? There's someone who can explain this way better than me. Yo, Damon, can you cue up that trailer thing you did? Please. All right, just go ahead and listen.
Everybody is a nerd about something. Superheroes, hip-hop, wine, fashion, spirituality, comedy, manga, poetry, teaching, costume design. You name it, there's nerds about it. And we've all been lying low in our individual spaces. But now, every nerd will rock. Everynerd Con debuts Saturday, February 10th at Octavia's Bookshelf, featuring a plethora of exciting guests like Stephanie Evans, Atticus Patakin, Rodney Barnes, Rachel Kinsey, Omar Finley, and more. Bring your younglings out for our kids' cosplay contest. Vibe with us during our live music performance. The Everynerd Con experience is shifting the paradigm of what con life can truly be. Pull up to Octavia's Bookshelf February 10th from 11 to 3:30. Everynerd Rise.
With the impact of COVID on our students and just how it's affected them in different ways, what are some of the challenges you've observed, even in that space of self-confidence or just willingness to learn? But specifically tied into like just how COVID has impacted the learning process.
I think the biggest effect that COVID had was from the social perspective. So many kids found peace in isolation, and they found like comfort in isolation. Even if they weren't aware that there was like some safety that was created in isolation. Like, I have my video games, I have Call of Duty, I know what I'm gonna eat, I know, or some kids didn't know what they were gonna eat. But I think that there was some sort of like just safety in not having to interact with other children and other people. So now when we get back to school and then you have kids bagging on other people and you have some of the things that happen, I think that there's just a natural instinct to pull back into ourselves that happened during COVID. So isolation, and I think community is key. So if we can get around more kids and get around more people and start expressing ourselves and sharing and having that vulnerability, then we can actually grow. But what I'm seeing is a lot of that isolation and fear to look crazy, fear to look different, fear to try new things.
I would say for my experience, I would say is a lot of it is like thoughts also. So besides the isolation of it, it's just like voicing everything that they want. So their parents cater to all of their needs per se, and it was okay to say inappropriate stuff or to hurt others' feelings because they were in the safe space of their home and no one was listening. So now that they're actually in the classroom setting or just out and about and it could be a sporting event or whatnot, listening to them and saying, you know, not just voicing everything that you're thinking, like think before you say it, like how is that going to make someone else feel? So a lot of it is like social emotional, like how are you going to react, or you know, oh, did you like how they made you feel? So a lot of it is just like making sure that they're expressing themselves, but in a safe and a kind way. A lot of it's like, are you using kind words? I mean, and it's like, again, I call it like my preschool moments. It's like, were those kind words, you know? Was that necessary for you to say that? Because sometimes like, you don't need to hear the negative thoughts right now. It's like, give me something kind. I want to hear something kind.
For me, as a math teacher, I really have tried not to, you know, not to make COVID be the reason that you're not growing and you're not successful. Like, we're not anchoring on COVID. Like, COVID came, and I live in the Valley. My community was ravaged by COVID. Not just a little, I mean, our numbers were worse than LA. A lot of intergenerational families, frontline workers, it was ravaged. Grandparents, I mean, it was ravaged. And so we mourned that thing together, created groups for the kids, but not at any point did we ever say, you know, that's the reason why, you know, you're failing 3 classes, and we understand. We did. And so for me, for COVID, it kind of made me dig my heels in deeper. The feelings was a big part. The kids came back, and it was really, you know, the counseling. My school does counsel. We sit in a circle and we talk about whatever the top topics are, and they went way over. I think all the schools did, because they just weren't sure how to really guide the kids back into a learning environment. So it was very social, and even that, it was hard for some of the kids to come back. Like, some of them are right now, they're stuck feeling their feelings about everything, and not about like, where am I going after this year? So for me, like, COVID does have all it leaves me with lots of taste in my mouth. But I think the main thing I'm dealing with my kids with COVID is that's something we couldn't control. It came in and it shut the world down. We couldn't control that. So now that we're coming back, what can you control?
The thing about COVID, I think, is that there are such different and disparaging differences in how people felt COVID, right? And how it affected different communities. And I think that is really important to state. And I think within my own school, I think that there are kids who have very different experiences through that time, based on their economic status, right? And based on whether or not their parents were able to work from home as well, based on whether or not they had multi-generational living, right? All those kinds of things are huge. And I think that it's really important to recognize those differences that kids had, right? I think that there are kids that were desperate for socialization, and they felt very imprisoned by the isolation of COVID. And I think that there were some kids who finally felt free. Yeah. And I think that those two things are very real, and they're really important to recognize. And when kids come back to school, and some kids are so happy to be out in the world and be among all their peers, and other kids are feeling like all their freedom was taken away because they can't be themselves anymore. And those are real things. And I think that that's really important to recognize and give everybody space for that.
Right! Who would ever think? Let's get educators and put them on a panel at a con. We had Spanish teacher, we had a program director for a smaller neighborhood school, and we had a librarian, we had a high school math teacher. Like, who would do that? And yet, they're all nerds about education from different angles, different lenses. And what they had to share, what they had to give, was absolutely beautiful. And that's the heart of every NerdCon. All right, now, this next one, you are going to experience deep dives with Dapper Dre. So a lot of us know a lot about something in particular. This dude knows a lot about everything in non-particular. I don't know what the word is for in general. That's hilarious. This dude knows a lot about everything in general and specifically. And he's my good buddy Dre. And look, our conversation was very long. So if in the future episodes you're like, this clip of Deep Dive with Dapper Dre looks awful familiar, or like they're in the same clothes, it's because we are. Like, I'm not going to front load you with all of it. It's just, it takes as long as it takes to show you guys the episode, but it's really fun. And I brought him specifically on the show just because his encyclopedic knowledge is beautiful. And he's one of those people that I think everyone should know. So please enjoy this next segment, Deep Dives with Dapper Dre. This is Dapper Dre. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers, baby.
Mom, if you're watching this is apple juice.
Mine's not.
We can't tell you which apple juice it is because we don't do free promotions. This is not a sponsored drink.
Josh, why are we here today?
That's solid juice.
Yeah.
We are here today because you know everything, and I'm not going to say I know nothing. That will actually, there will never actually be footage of me saying that.
Great.
I know a great many things, but we're here because you know a lot of things that I don't know, and your memory should be studied by science once you pass. Not putting that out there, obviously.
Which should hopefully not be for a very long time.
For a very long time.
Very long time.
But oddly, I kind of do want to see the results of the study. So even if it is a very long time, I hope you go first.
Well, okay. To be continued.
Right. But yeah, so no, you anytime we talk or hang out, you know just so much stuff about like Marvel, DC, Arthur, the opposite of Star Wars, who I will not name on this show. So much. And I find it fascinating, and I think the people will also find it fascinating.
Okay.
So for starters,
yeah.
Actually, so this just happened. He knew we were gonna film. He just threw this at me. We hadn't even filmed yet. The tidbit about Batman the Caped Crusader that you were texting me about.
Batman the Cape. Oh, that it's
Actually, I think it's just Batman Caped Crusader. There's no that.
Batman. I'm not sure yet. So the show, to put this in a timestamp, the show recently came out on Prime, which means that I only watch it occasionally because I forget Prime exists.
Thanks.
And
well, there goes our Amazon sponsorship.
But I'm a big fan of Batman, and I'm a big fan of DC Comics history. So I noted that there's a lot of cool hidden references in there. And there is a photographer, journalist that pops in at about episode 3 when Catwoman pops in, I believe.
Yes. I think it might have actually even been in episode 2.
Because I only watched 3 like a few nights ago.
Yeah.
But that's when I clocked it. His name's E.L. O'Brien, and that's when I told you E.L. O'Brien is the alias of Plastic Man.
Which I had no idea about that. So for people who don't know anything about Plastic Man, like me, I'll be the stand-in subject for the people.
Okay.
If you know nothing about Plastic Man, but you also watch Static Shock, what's the difference between Plastic Man and Rubber Band Man?
They're virtually the same almost.
Oh wow, not a big difference. Okay, except
Oh, you're asking about like logistics of it, or
yeah, I mean obviously Rubber Band Man is black and he has a music career. I don't think Plastic Man is. Well, I know Plastic Man is not black.
No,
Can he change his melanin content?
No, because there's an ongoing joke where anytime he transforms into something, his skin color, the yellow on his belt and the black on there, and the red stay there. So there's an issue written by, it's a Joe Kelly. It's a JLA issue that's like a one-off where they're tracking down a white Martian that's impersonating Bruce Wayne, and they have to go undercover in their cities. And Big Barda, it comes out in a dress, and they're like, "Where'd you get the dress from?" And he's like, "It was left on the side for me." And it's like, "That's not a dress," and it's Plastic Man's wrapped up because he's on the dress and tries to strangle Plastic Man like on the dress.
Yes.
So he always just looks like his coloring.
Got you. That's cool.
Yeah. The Plastic Man was a former a criminal, not very good at, but he's well known. And during a incident, he gets doused by some chemicals, and that's how he's able to expand and become Plastic Man.
Wait, he was a criminal in the comic book days?
Yes.
Didn't know that, folks. If you're only listening to this, I just gave a look of shock and awe to the camera. He was a criminal?
He was a criminal.
Like a top tier penguin level boss?
No.
Or like lower level?
Like lackey level criminal. He's actually one of the oldest comic book characters too. He's created like around the 1940s or so. So he's a golden age character.
You heard it here, folks. Plastic Man is a golden age character. So many gems. This has only been like 90 seconds or something. My relationship with time is fluid.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot of facts about Plastic Man, but we don't have to stick on Plastic Man forever.
Oh, give me your top 5 facts about Plastic Man.
Top 5 facts about Plastic Man. He's, in some continuities, he's been around since the 40s, so he's immortal, actually. And he's served on the All-Star Squadron, which is a spin-off team of the JSA that takes place after Pearl Harbor.
Okay. That's 2.
That's 2. 3, he is invulnerable to John Jones's telepathy because his mind's malleable.
That's cool.
4, he's also theoretically, I think, immortal or invincible because at one point he blows up during the JLA run that Grant Morrison starts. Morrison didn't write this issue. I think it's a Wade issue or a Joe Kelly issue. Yeah. And they're like, he's dead. And Batman's like, he's not. There's a bunch of little particles in the water and they're all E. O'Brien. And then he just kind of reforms himself.
Wow.
And he's a child. He's a child named Offspring.
It was apple juice, Mom. It was apple juice. Besides, you know what they say. Apple juice and Henny go good together. Know what I mean? I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. Dre is one of my favorite people in the world. All right, continuing on with the segment called Vibe Check. And this is just a little splash in between of just whatever I'm feeling that particular episode. This past week was actually the birthdays of Christopher Reeve and Mark Hamill. And our guy Star Wars Connection did a video about it, celebrating Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill with a nod to Christopher Reeve. So without further ado, we're going to cut to Star Wars Connection. The way George felt about Luke Skywalker is that Luke was meant to represent someone who ultimately ended up being one of those people who just kind of seems to do the right thing, but not because they didn't want to do the wrong thing. Not because there was no darkness in him. What is fascinating about Luke Skywalker is that he is one of those rare characters, almost like Superman. And this actually is in my head because I watched the Superman Christopher Reeve documentary yesterday. And I didn't know that at the time, the biggest superstar in the world close to Christopher Reeve was Mark Hamill and like one other person. Like they were peers. That's how big Superman was. Anyways, Luke Skywalker is one of those people, one of those characters like Superman who represents what it's like to put in the boiling, grueling work of trying to find what the right solution is and everything. One of the biggest things that stood out to me is in the Legacy of the Force series. So Legacy of the Force is kind of like actually the Anakin Skywalker story of Jason Solo. And so Jason Solo turns to the dark side. Spoiler. As Jason had been going along his dark path, he'd been concealing it from Luke as best he could. And it wasn't really that he was powerful enough to conceal anything from Luke, because he wasn't. What gave him the edge is that even though Luke saw some outwardly disturbing signs, Luke chose to trust. Can you imagine? Like, just sit and think about the kind of person you have to be. Chewie's dead. Chewie's been dead for a while now. Your youngest nephew, who was named after your father, who you saved from the dark side, by the way. Your youngest nephew, who was named after your father, who was the most powerful of all the Solo children and who was the heir that Luke was going to pass the Jedi Order on to, he got killed in the war. Never got to walk into his full potential. Luke lived through all that. And in spite of Jason's troubling steps, he still chose to trust. He did not readily believe that the darkness that claimed his father had claimed his other nephew. And then at the very end of Legacy of the Force, I found this really beautiful even as a kid when I was reading this series. Luke confronts Jason because he's like, okay, I think you're evil. And in the confrontation is Luke and Jason in the room, and Luke just pins him down with the Force. And not like overtly. Jason tried to move and do some stuff and found he couldn't move. That's how powerful Luke Skywalker had become by that point. He pinned this dude down with the Force without him even knowing it had happened. And this is when Jason was at the height of his powers. And in that moment, everything got confirmed. Jason's like, I hate you, all that stuff. And Luke was like, okay, cool. So I'm not gonna kill you because that's not the type of person I am. That's not the type of person I want to be. But I will stop you. There's a plan in place to stop you. Something's going to happen. The Force is going to let us know. There's a plan in place to stop you. And it's not me killing you because that's not right. And it turns out the plan in place to stop Jason, what it became, was for Jaina to fight Jason. And this is why you really got to read and know these characters and know what the heart of Star Wars is. Because Jaina represents what it's like to have the aggression, to have the ability to kill without it being a stain on her or a temptation to the dark side. And the ability to kill intimately, like she's fighting her brother. And so Jaina fights Jason. Basically, Luke uses the Force to like channel his power and his reflexes into Jaina in the big fight between Jaina and Jason, and then that's how she beats him. But this is Luke Skywalker, a very precious, rare character who we really would not have without the magnanimity that is Mark Hamill. We love you forever. Happy belated birthday, Mark Hamill. Connection inspires expansion. All right, so that is the vibe check of the episode. This next part is the gospel clap. Who gets the clap emoji this week? And this is because it's easy to rag on something and talk about why something's bad, because there's a lot of bad stuff. And there's a lot of reasons why. And that's not particularly interesting. I do critique things from time to time, but you know, have you ever been in a conversation and realized you had nothing to recommend someone? What book should I read? What TV show should I watch? What movies do you think I would enjoy? And you can't recommend anything because all you do, and talking to myself, all I was doing was criticizing stuff. Like, I almost fell over when I asked myself the question, when's the last time, Josh, that you sat down and watched something just because you liked it? I was like, oh, okay. Or because you wanted to see it. Not everything that we want to see turns out to be good, but it's like, what happens to just liking things and doing what you enjoy? So I got the chance, because it was a limited release, to see Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, and that gets the clap emoji. That gets the gospel clap, okay? Superman was originally played by Christopher Reeve. Some of us know this, some of us do not. Originally played by Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve was extremely unknown at the time. He actually had gone to acting school with Robin Williams, and so, you know, they're focused on theater stuff they're professional, classically trained actors. And then the casting for Superman wasn't going well because they were finding all these big, bulky people who couldn't act. So, long story short, they reach out, Christopher Reeve auditions, gets it. This documentary, though, was very, very moving to me because it made me wrestle with that question of, what does it mean to be alive? Usually, the question that everyone asks themselves is, why are we alive? Why are we here? Doesn't matter. And, you know, the mileage varies, and there's nothing wrong with that question. We've gotten a lot of great practices and philosophies out of it, but the bigger question is, what does it mean to be alive? And Christopher Reeve had seized upon what for him it meant to be alive, because if you don't know, he was a very physical person, like horseback riding, skiing, climbing, biking, sport. He was that dude. And in a horrific horse riding accident, he got flipped off his horse and it shattered the bones in his neck. And so he was paralyzed from the shoulders down. And his initial thing was like, I can't do any of the things I love. I can't play with my kids. I can't make love to my wife. I can't even walk down the red carpet. And I for sure can't act. And so he wanted his wife to let him go, and she's like, nah, babe, I'm with you. She's like, I'll respect your choice, but I need you to know that I love you for you. And so he had to slowly, like, just push through. Or not even he had to, he chose to. And all of it's in the documentary, but being able to push through something like that, and then he re-engaged his interest. He was deeply interested in science. I didn't know that. So he began championing scientific research about spinal cord injuries. And as I was sitting there, I was like, oh, this is crazy. There wasn't a lot of spinal cord injury research happening at the time. It was not prioritized. The whole world of disabled people was relatively invisible to the modern world and society of that time. No one talked about it, but because it was Superman in the wheelchair, it brought a lot of attention to it. And so he was able to get people to spend money on research. And do you know of any major celebrity in the last 5 years who had a spinal injury, who he almost died, and he survived, and is now walking and exercising again? You know who that is? Kevin Hart. I maintain that Kevin Hart is not walking today without the work of Christopher Reeve. And so yeah, just seeing the type of man that he was, I was like, wow, this is moving. And if you can imagine me, all the things that we can do that sometimes we take for granted, I don't believe that just because you're not harping over everything you can do in every given moment, that means you're taking it for granted. Sometimes I believe that there is a way to experience passive gratitude. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna question it. I can reach my arm over and do this. I can move, I can dance, I can exercise, I can whatever. And then imagine just not being able to do that. If you're a writer, imagine like an accident happening to your hands, you can't write. Any impairment, right? And so for him to continue past that, to dream bigger, to push, and near the end, before he passed away, his brain had actually started rewiring itself and forging new connections, and there was movement in his fingers and his legs. He was able to slowly apply weight. He was on the road to actually being able to walk again from believing, like he did, but he stayed alive for it. He dreamed. So Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, gets the gospel clap, gets the clap emoji for this week. And with that, we are going to close out our episode with this segment, again here with me, called Super Dream. So I am a teacher, and one of the things I teach my kids about is the things that change the world are ideas. And specifically, the most powerful type of idea is a super dream. One of the people I am most a fan of in this living world is a woman named Nikki High. She came from corporate at Trader Joe's, and after her grandmother passed away is when she was like, this ain't it for me. And her super dream was to own a bookstore named after the legendary and super iconic writer Octavia E. Butler, and that is what she did. And she opened it, and she's here. And it's a bookstore, so there's ups and downs, but she is here. She's here, and she's doing the thing. So I want to take the time to say, support your local bookstores, support them, advertise for them, go buy the books, order online, buy gifts, give people gift cards to these places. But I want you to hone in onto your super dream. What is the thing that makes you come alive? Consider that. Maybe you can't drop everything and do it right now, but that doesn't matter. What is your super dream? Because if you connect to your super dream and let it fill you up, it will show you what your next step should be or what your next leap should be. But you gotta know it. So sit with yourself. Take some time and take all the constraints off, right? Take all the constraints off. It's not about money. It's not about practicality. It's not about what you believe can happen in any given time frame. It's not about none of that. It is simply what you want. And maybe it's something specific, like, I would love to be an actor. I want to be a big time movie star. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's like, I would love to cure cancer. Maybe it's that. Maybe you want to be involved in your community. You don't necessarily want to be famous, but you want to be someone that people know they can go to if change needs to happen or they need to be supported. What is your super dream? And there are those of us who also have a super dream for the world. And that can also drive you, because if you're just like, this world, or you can make it regional, this country, whatever country you're in, this city is not going the way that I believe it should go. It's not representing the best of what it means to be human. If you are driven by that, and that's your super dream, like, I want this to turn around. I want this place to be something worthwhile. So maybe you do some political work, maybe you do some fundraising, maybe you do some grassroots organizing to help people pay their bills, maybe you create something. You never know. That's why the first step is let your super dream fill you up. Every nook and cranny of your heart, mind, soul, your body, let it fill you up like a kid. Remember being a kid and just be like, I want this more than anything in the world. Let it fill you up like that. And once you're full, your next steps will be shown to you. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Everynerd Rise Show, where I nerd about everything with everyone, including different versions of myself. Please submit to the High Form Family channel on YouTube. Not submit, subscribe. I didn't mean to say submit. Or did I? Please submit to the High Form Family YouTube channel. And always the next day, this show will be available to stream in podcast form. So The first day on YouTube is when you can hear, if you want to tune in and be the first ones to experience the show. And then the following day, it'll be streaming online wherever you get your podcast. And with that, my dearly beloved friends, I bid thee adieu.